Hello.
The Tri-Cities hit music station.
And WSEZ Z93 in Winston-Salem.
Wow, that's a big one. Boochie, boochie. All right, I'm all shared up. No. Let's get right into the content. People like it when we get right into the content. We don't beat around the bush very much at all. These, by my reckoning, are the top 5 stories in pro wrestling for the year 2021. We'll get to our top 5 MVPs in pro wrestling in just a moment. But again, I've ranked the top 5 by my estimation, the most important stories in all of pro wrestling. We start with a 3-way tie for the number 5 story. The announcement that AEW Dynamite is moving to TBS, the WWE network's moving to Peacock in the United States, and the possible end of Ring of Honor wrestling, I think all tie for the number 5 spot. Let's take each of those in order. We'll take them in reverse order. Ring of Honor and Sinclair's botching of it, and they're eventually slowing down. It looks like they're not going to be coming back. There's no new news on that front, right, this week as far as Sinclair and them. They're just kind of slowing down things, and they say they're going to reassess in the first quarter, right?
That's last I saw, yeah.
Unless Dixie Carter can get her dad to write another check and spend some more stupid money. I'm not really sure exactly what the future is.
Well, let's hope.
Round 2 of the Carter's involvement in pro wrestling. I mean, the ultimate shock on this whole thing would be is if, and we'll get to this story in just a moment, if they send Stephanie and Triple H to the sidelines, which may be happening right now, if they decide to cash out their stock and then decide to spend it and buy ROH, you could get a real life Raw Nitro moment like from 2001, right? You could get that real thing happening, except I don't think it would happen on live television. But
no,
you talk about shock. You talk about shocking the world. Holy shit, that would be an amazing thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but why would they do that? Why would they buy Ring of Honor?
Because they've been sidelined because of the Palace intrigue. There's a lot there. There are some rumors now that after years and years of Stephanie being poised to be the one who would take over the family business, that maybe Shane McMahon is being put in place to be the 3rd generation McMahon owner of World Wrestling Entertainment.
Well, isn't he too busy doing Raw Underground?
Oh, I'm sorry. That should be the actual. You've just blown my number 1 story of 2021, Raw Underground, and its influence on the pro wrestling industry.
Totally my bad.
What a groundbreaking prospect that was, and had made really big stars like Omos, who is almost a star, but not really.
Almost, yeah.
So Ring of Honor's contributions, we've already kind of put the obituary to them. I don't see there is any turnaround for this. I don't think Sinclair is going to pull the rabbit out of the hat or anything like that. But you can see, we talked about this with Stutzy a few weeks ago. Some of the major stars of pro wrestling today, including Seth Rollins and Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, just to name a few of the people who came out of Ring of Honor. Sami Zayn would also be on that list. Kevin Owens would be another guy. These are all people who got their star in Ring of Honor and may not have gotten a break on a stage as big as they did without Ring of Honor.
Yeah. Oh, it's a ton of people, man. Ton of people. Adam Cole.
I don't know what the real lesson of the deterioration of Ring of Honor would be, other than Sinclair pretty much sucks at everything that they touch.
Well, they didn't give a shit about it. We talked about that a million times, man. It's just I'm not sure why they even delved into it. I'm not. Do you know? I mean, how it kind of came to be, or did they just get sold a? I'm not going to say they got sold a bill of goods, but did somebody sell them something that they thought they were going to really, make a lot of profit on it, and they saw it wasn't going to make a lot of profit, and they just didn't give a shit about it after that, or what? I'm not real sure how that kind of happened.
Well, the whole idea behind putting Jim Cornette into the Ring of Honor fold was to polish it up so that it would look good to the Sinclair guys. And I think they were very interested, at least for a while. They seemed to be a plan that they were going to control this content, which was going to go on their stations. They've got some great affiliates.
Oh, yeah.
All over America, some really high-powered affiliates. And this seemed to be something, but after a very short time, they were the dog that caught the car. They didn't know what to do with that thing once they had it. It wasn't something they wanted to put a lot of effort into as far as selling.
Well, I think, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think maybe it's just because they didn't have to do anything with it, because at the time, all those people that you named were riding high in Ring of Honor up until, and honestly, dude, I think we saw this coming back in that last go around of people that got swiped up by them, like when Dijakovic got swiped up, and Adam Cole and that whole bunch that in one fell swoop took off.
That was it. That was the end of the end, right?
That was it, dude. There was nobody to hold the reins anymore, man. And Ring of Honor, and I just don't think they could recover from that. And honestly, it's kind of the same way NXT was. After that one batch that I got to think for a minute to remember exactly who it was, but there was one batch maybe a year or so ago that came up, and after that it was like, damn, who they got now,
right?
And they might recover, but it's going to be slow, I think.
Sinclair didn't seem to be capable of capitalizing in any way on the live event part of it. They couldn't even do. You heard some interesting things from Jeff Jarrett on that panel that we were at about how if you actually do have live events and they are a loss leader, it's so important in your particular community in establishing a brand. And Sinclair never saw the vision and never saw the value of, hey, we're here in Oklahoma City. It's Ring of Honor wrestling, and at least people could hear on the streets them talking about it or whatever, and that would create some sort of buzz and some sort of brand recognition. You lift up the brand by putting it out there. So they never saw the value of that, and they never had anyone like a Jeff Jarrett, or at least after it was sold, and in very short time they nearly gave Jim Cornette the heart attack that took his life. He bowed out, so they weren't going to listen to what he had to say. There never was a plan. I think there was a lot of corporate infighting as to who was going to control it and who was going to look good on it, and it just never developed into what they wanted it to do. Even though I thought it got some good numbers in several different markets, they just were not able to capitalize on it in any specific way.
Well, the thing I liked about it, well, it's not the only thing I liked about it. The one thing I liked about it is I don't know, man. I know this sounds weird, and I said it before, but I kind of liked it coming on, and still do for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I guess, on Saturday nights around here at like 11, 12 o'clock at night. I just kind of, I don't know if it brings back fond memories of the good old days of Rich Landrum and worldwide championship, worldwide wrestling, or whatever it was that came on at the same time, or what. But but it didn't interfere with anything, so that's why I liked it. I could watch it and not have to worry about missing something, or it was a good time, even though I could record it, but whatever. I just liked it coming on at that time.
It also seems like they never were able to capitalize on some of their bigger stars going on to other things. I mean, they've got some amazing footage of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, and then Kevin Steen and Tyler Black, who is now Seth Rollins. And it just never seemed like, hey, they could take
Cesaro,
that library and really capitalize on it in any way, shape, or form, as they should have. Now, back in the day, the DVD business did pretty well.
Yeah.
Those were traded pretty nicely, but I don't think they were ever able to really do anything. It's just a lot of lost opportunities for Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem, man. I think they just didn't know how to hang on to some of those guys. Now honestly, dude, no, you got to agree. Now, some of those guys you weren't going to keep there. I mean, they were just too good. They're
Clearly.
they're going to move on. But there were 2 or 3 guys that I'm not saying they weren't going to move on, but they could have kept them there for a while longer, and like you said, capitalized off of what they were,
Right.
and done something with them, you know. But I would be willing to say Adam Cole is one of those guys. I think they could have taken him and rode him to the damn bank if they wanted to, but they didn't apparently know how to do it or something. But he jumped right over to WWE, and he's, you know, making money now. I mean, like printing money, not making money, printing money.
Yeah, printing money.
You know?
It appears also that, I mean, Jay Lethal basically stayed on the ship almost till it had sank. I mean, he was on till the very last minute before he jumped.
Oh, dude, he was hanging on like this.
Exactly.
By his little finger. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like I said before, I don't know whether to say God bless him or, you know, what a dumbass. But he bailed out in time, I guess.
The WWE Network's moving to Peacock, which was one of the first big corporate blows that Nick Kahn imprinted as he moved from Creative Artists Associates to World Wrestling Entertainment. Not a great boon for the consumer, because the move to Peacock has been a mixed bag at best as far as the user interface and all of that stuff. But overall, it was a huge boon and a big shot in the arm to World Wrestling Entertainment. And possibly the investment has the idea that the investment from Universal, Comcast, would end up in them buying World Wrestling Entertainment. So your thoughts on the network moving to Peacock, Brian?
I was a little skeptical at first. I didn't really know what to make of it. I didn't know if it was going to sink or swim because, well, I didn't know how. I should have known that the Peacock should be, you know, top of the line kind of streaming with NBC Universal taking control, but you just never know sometimes about how they have who they have running that stuff really knows what they're doing. But it ended up being fine. You know, everything that I've you know watched since they've come over has been fine. You know, like I said, the library is kind of jacked up right now. You kind of have to, you know, search around and that sort of thing. The way they got it, they don't have everything over there on Peacock like they do on WWE Network. But, you know, I already had Peacock anyway when they had it, when they moved over there. So that part was nice for me. I didn't have to, you know, dish out money that I didn't really want to dish out for all this other stuff. But they have other stuff on there that I like. I'm not saying I watch it all the time other than wrestling, but I did have it. So that was nice. But I really can't say anything bad about it, man. I mean, I'm trying to sit here and think of some negatives, and other than the jacked up library kind of thing, I really don't know of any other negative as far as I'm concerned.
There were a lot of fans who were using virtual private networks, VPNs, to just get the WWE Network, which is still available everywhere else in the world. So there's some people that are still doing that. Yeah, I think there's also been some infighting in terms of Fox 21st Television not being real happy about Peacock being promoted on their Friday Night SmackDown. So there's been some sort of easing of tensions there, because apparently 21st wants to have their own streaming thing. Of course, they sold off a lot of their intellectual property that's gone over to Disney. So that's been a little bit of a problem for WWE to try to work all that stuff out. It's a little tug of war between Fox, 21st Television, and of course Comcast Universal. Those are their two major partners. I know that in that last investors call, Nick Kahn did mention the fact that I think their deal as far as the next day stuff going to Hulu, SmackDown, and also Raw. And he mentioned the idea that perhaps Peacock might be interested in grabbing that and putting that on the network as well, which would mean another big cash infusion to the WWE. And if that happens, maybe that'll mean 2 less people will get fired in the next go around. We'll see. That's going to be another story we'll talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, they at some point in time, you could see, instead of that stuff going on Hulu, you could see SmackDown and you could see Raw ending up on Peacock the next day, which would make a lot of sense. That's a good synergistic tie-in and something that might happen actually in 2022. The other big story that I've got in at number 5 in that 3-way tie would be Dynamite moving to TBS. This was announced fairly early in 2021, and it's going to happen right after the new year. there's always a period of adjustment. For us, it's like no big deal. Obviously, for a lot of people on their cable or satellite system, the TBS channel is right next to the TNT channel.
Right.
But for a lot of people, it's always been the case that there's been a major readjustment. And unfortunately, as we go into the new year, AEW Dynamite is not doing so great ratings-wise. They've seen some of the lowest ratings in the demo and overall since May. So I don't know exactly what to attribute to that. I couldn't tell you. It looks like the shows, to my eye, have been as good as they have been all year long. They're featuring some of their biggest stars in big roles. That Atlanta street fight on Wednesday, I thought, was something that would entertain most people and certainly keep them up to the end. They featured the MJF and CM Punk thing is going on. Really, some of their biggest stars like CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and Cody Rhodes and those guys have been featured prominently. So I don't know what I would attribute the lack of momentum going into 2022 is going to be, but it is going to be a reset for the promotion as their flagship program goes to an entire new network in 2022.
Yeah, well, I will say this, that if you're going to change networks like that, it couldn't be any better of a situation for them to change networks, because like you said, on virtually every cable network or Sling or whatever you got, TNT and TBS are either right beside each other or within a channel or two of each other. So that shouldn't be an issue for most people, like it was like back when, SmackDown and whoever was moving all over the place from Sci-Fi to, USA, and
Raw was going to TNN and all that stuff.
All that mess. Yeah. That was just that was a damn dumpster fire for people, I'm sure. But I get, like I said, this is the best case scenario, I guess, if you're going to change network. So I guess look at it that way. But I other than that, I really don't see a big difference in it, other than maybe the handful of people that it's not an easy fix for. I don't know why it would be, because most people that have TNT would have TBS. So
it's always very different to look at the viewing habits. And you've seen, we talked about this before. People are such creatures of habit. Even when there's a time change, there's always kind of a readjustment that people can't find a particular program. It's very, very strange, but they have good partners. AEW does in Warner Media. And I would hope that, of course, there would be a lot of promotional advertisements on TNT. Hey, if you're looking for AEW Dynamite, it's now on TBS. That sort of synergy.
If they're smart, they do that for sure.
I think that sort of synergy works in their favor. And like I said, Warner Media seems to be very happy and very serious about what's going on with AEW. They're embracing it, and I think it's going to work out for the better for them. It appears that JR is going to come back in January, so that they'll be able to have their lead announcer, their very well-established, well-known announcer back when the program makes its debut on TBS. I don't know if they're going to try to hotshot a bunch of stuff in January to try to get things kind of rolling for the new network, but overall, they should be able to make, they'll be able to make the adjustment and make the transition about as seamlessly as you possibly could. Like you said, it's not like they're going to another corporation or another media company. They're going to be within the same media company, just going to another channel. So hopefully the synergy will work out really well and they'll be able to make that transition. But what would you assign the lack of momentum on that program going in as we finish up the year? I'm a little confused by all of that.
Yeah, I honestly, man, I'm really bad about not keeping up with the numbers each week like that, and I kind of rely on you and whoever to tell me about it, but you mainly. I didn't really realize that they had been dipping as bad as they have been like that. I'm sitting here trying to think why, because it's really not been that long since they snagged Punk and Danielson and Adam Cole. So I don't know, man. I'll
get you the summary from Wrestling.
That's weird. I don't know.
This most recent episode drew 861,000 viewers, down 4% from the Thanksgiving Eve episode. Dynamite drew a 0.31 rating, 18-49. This is equal to last week's 0.31. That represents 406,000 viewers. from that saw the show, the down 0.49% in the key demo. We've heard a lot about that key demo. It ranked number 3 on the cable 150 this week with a 0.31 rating in the 18 to 49 key demographic. That is up from last week's number 6 rating. These are not bad numbers, but they're not necessarily good either. Dynamite ranked number 40 in viewership for the night on cable, tied with CNN's Global Town Hall at 9, which ranked at number 63 on the cable 150 with a 0.10 key demo. This is the key, Bryant, the lowest normal time slot viewership since May the 19th. And the key demo rating tied with this last week's show for the lowest since May the 19th. Very interesting to take a look as that May the 19th show. And I don't know what they were doing all the way back then, but that obviously predates.
I can't remember.
It obviously predates CM Punk, obviously predates Bryan Danielson. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I was just thinking. Well, you said that. Now it got me thinking about what that May 19th show was. Now I'm trying to think, and I can't begin to tell you now. I'm trying to go back, but I really can't go back before all those guys came in.
That feels like that would have been right around the time that we would have had the wars between the Pinnacle and the Elite or whatever they were.
The whatever Chris Jericho's people,
Jericho's group and MJF's group. It feels like we would have been in the meat of that program at that point in time.
Probably right. Yeah, man. I don't know what might be going on now. Do you think? And you tell me. How do they figure in like DVRs on this?
They do +2s and +3s later, and those are always kind of weird, and they don't. There's not a seamless or a really good way to put all of that stuff in there. But these are going to be the numbers that mostly the ad agencies and stuff are going to go with.
Well, I'm wondering if that might be part of it. I don't know why all of a sudden everybody's doing shit on Wednesday night or finding something else to watch on Wednesday night. I don't know. I mean, if that's even it, but that's the only thing I can think of is people are recording it and maybe watching it more than they were back 6 months or 7 months ago.
All of the sports are happening right now. College football is winding down. There's no pro football, but my God, NBA, college football, or rather college basketball, the National Hockey League, all that shit's happening. It's gonna
I think that's part of a fact. I think that's definitely a factor. I don't know if that's everything, but I think that's
we didn't mention it, but that is the reason that they're having to move AEW Dynamite from TNT to TBS is because of that NHL contract, which was really a last-ditch effort from Warner Media to grab that. They weren't expected to get that at all. So that would actually be one of the big stories of 2021 as well that helps impact pro wrestling. So I don't know exactly what's going on in terms of lack of momentum for this product, and I don't think it's anything to worry about per se, but it is something to look at as you go into the end of the year, and you're trying to get out of the TNT part of this with a bit of momentum going into 2022. It's very difficult. People are doing all sorts of things going into Christmas and New Year's, and Wednesday nights at 8:00 may not be their top priority in life right now. That may not be something that's like a huge deal for them as you head into the end of the year.
Well, I did think about that, and normally WWE, this is like their throwaway month for
absolutely.
Everything.
You're getting ready to see a fantastic Santa Claus match. You're going to see. You're going to get all the great bullshit that you see with the Christmas trees and the presents and all of that horse shit is going to be coming up on Raw for sure.
Can't wait. But it does seem like they're kind of pumping things up a little more than normal, like tonight on SmackDown and all getting ready for that day one thing. So they're kind of ditching that tables and ladders and chairs bullshit or whatever they usually have.
Well, we're deep into WrestleMania season. I mean, we are. And Brock Lesnar making that appearance on Friday Night SmackDown tonight, not necessarily wrestling. He did beat the shit out of Sami Zayn for a couple of minutes, but he was not necessarily involved in a match. But they're trying to get things together and pumped up for what looks to be actually a pretty good day one pay-per-view on January the 1st of 2022.
That's what I'm impressed with. Like I said, normally they don't, They just kind of hem-haw around for the month of December and half of January until the Royal Rumble at the end of January. But it looks like they're kind of stepping shit up a little bit this year for, I don't know if this for the reason we just talked about the ratings or what, but it does seem like it this year.
My number 4 story of 2021 is the return of live crowds. You were part of this because you saw AEW live wrestling, and you're going to be seeing AEW live wrestling again coming up pretty soon. Live crowds, of course, returning just in time for that 2-night extravaganza in Tampa for WrestleMania. And what we've seen recently is, as Dave Meltzer and others have reported, some soft ticket sales for both companies as people are kind of sort of getting into regular life. And now we have the Omicron variant of COVID coming into the picture. We don't know how that's going to affect things. You've seen already the travel restrictions in Japan. That's become a big story over the last week to 10 days. And we don't know exactly how that's going to impact Wrestle Kingdom, which is, of course, New Japan's massive, huge.
Next month, right?
Yeah, very close. We're only a few weeks away from Wrestle Kingdom. So we don't know how any of that's going to work. We've seen some, as we say, soft ticket sales in some markets, even for the hot product, which is All Elite Wrestling, even in what you would think would be some very friendly markets like Charlotte and Greensboro. So I'm not really sure what to make of that. Again, the economy in general is starting to pick up. We saw some really good unemployment numbers from October, and we've seen some soft employment numbers come out recently. Everything is a bit of a journey and a bit of a relaunch for everything. But yeah, the return of live crowds has to be considered, I think, one of the big stories of 2021.
I agree. I think, and again, we talked about this the whole time that there weren't live crowds, is how much we didn't realize how much we missed live crowds until they were gone. You know, we kind of made fun of them even at times back in before COVID and the way they acted and shit. But you know, we never really. I think not just you and I think the wrestling industry in general took live crowds for granted, and I don't think they realized how much they meant to, I mean, other than the, you know, fucking money in their pocket kind of thing, you know, for the wrestling companies, the money that they're getting. Obviously they know that, but I'm talking about like for the presentation of the show and just the background and just everything else besides them making profit off of it. I'm just talking about the audience being a part of the show. And I don't think people realize that until COVID. So I think that's maybe something good that came out for wrestling fans. If there's something good to look at, I think wrestling companies appreciate shows now. I mean, people coming to shows now more.
It's interesting because they had to come up with some innovations during COVID, and it's probably fair to say that they would not have done what they did with Roman Reigns as far as turning him heel if COVID had not happened. And then you transition that into live crowds who eventually end up liking what they're doing with that character. Also, we've seen they use the CGI graphics way more, and they've kind of used that instead of pyrotechnics as much, which I guess is saving the company some money as well. As far as AEW goes, I'm not really sure what innovations and what differences have been made in terms of live crowds. It's still one of the things that's quite vexing for the AEW product is they can't figure out exactly what's going on with Cody Rhodes, who would have been going into that promotion, one of their most popular wrestlers. And we're not really sure what the live crowds think of Cody Rhodes. There's a lot of booing of him, and they've tried to kickstart that character quite a bit. The Atlanta street fight on the most recent Dynamite was certainly very interesting, but I'm not sure how the live crowds are reacting to Cody Rhodes right now. And I don't know what that means for his future in that character, Bryant.
I don't either. I'm not sure where the train went off the tracks with him, but I can probably guess it was right before they announced the show. And I'm not sure what even led up to that, but it seemed like things were kind of, you know, getting a little crinkly for him right before that. Just some of the reactions he was getting, just the overexposure kind of stuff. But I think when that show hit, man, that was it. That was just, you know, everything is.
So that doesn't bode well for season 2 of that show.
Well, I don't know why. Maybe they're getting good numbers. I don't know. I mean, there's got to be a reason why they're.
I think I believe this podcast broke the news of that season 2. We did it well about 48 to 72 hours ahead of the other podcasts.
I believe you're right.
Your personal conversation with QT Marshall as he revealed that they're going to have a second season of Roads to the Top. We don't know when it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
because of that, we don't know how that's going to affect his AEW on-screen character and what you're going to do with this and that. It seems like a gigantic mess. I'll say this also as we continue to talk about the live crowds. I go back to the days of Bruce Pritchard talking about how his company, how the WWE back in the day would figure out what to charge for tickets, is they would always kind of look at the circus. Well, there is no circus anymore. There's going to be a generation of Americans that have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. There are some things that still tour on a regular basis. God bless the Harlem Globetrotters. They're still out there, and Disney on Ice. There's not that many things that tour like the WWE does anymore. So as far as establishing a ticket price, we kept hearing the $20 price that was pushed greatly for that Greensboro show last Friday, correct? That was the price point that they really wanted you to know about. And that seems to be the pain threshold for their customers.
Well, we all know where the $20 seats are. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
but
that's all well and good.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get in for $20. That's not a lie. But I'd much rather be sitting in my damn chair watching it than sitting up in the rafters. Unless I'd never been before and I wanted to get an experience. And
you got like a kid kid that's begging you to go.
Okay.
The kid wants to get the shirt. You're going to pay that much in most places to park as well. By the way, you're going to pay $20 to park, and then
sure,
if you got somebody with you, you got a couple people with you, it's going to be $60. Somebody wants a T-shirt, we're talking 80 or 100. It comes out. It tends to be a very expensive night.
Yes,
but
it does.
They don't give a shit. They don't care about any of that stuff.
But you get those $20 seats, But
as long as we can get back into Saudi Arabia and get that huge injection of cash that brings, that's the important thing that happens for that company for sure.
Yeah.
I've got the number 3 story. I'm calling the fading of Triple H. Triple H's health problems, and apparently he is being really put on the back burner right now, and we're not hearing much about him at all. They did show a video of Triple H and Vince looking over the new Titan headquarters and the renovations that they've gone out there in Stamford. But it appears that the influence of Triple H in this company has really been thrown to the background. Obviously, NXT famously is under new management with the new logo and the 2.0 version of it. And they are proudly and very publicly telling you that Triple H has nothing to do with that product right now. We don't know going forward what his influence is going to be in this company. And not only his influence, but his wife's influence going forward as well. So that is all a huge mystery. And I think that's the number 3 story of the year is Triple H taking a back seat in this company as far as management goes, Brian.
Yeah. I tell you, man, we talked some shit about those two plenty of times on this podcast over the years, but and a lot of it was just in jest, but some of it was, legit, I think. But I think overall, I think that would be a terrible loss for us as fans if those two did get, shut out of the company or whatever. I think they kind of are as right now, but it seems like it, but for all practical purposes. But I think if they don't have a hand in it, because I think I think despite all the shit we've said about them, I think they've kind of been two of the, I don't know, more sensible, logical people in management over the last several years, as far as, keeping things on the rails up there, I think
once you take the man's hand off of the tiller, and once Bruce and Vince get their hands on NXT, boy, it's hard to get him back in. It's hard for either of those guys to give up the power that they've had. And it looks like the Kevin Dunn faction, he is winning for sure. Vince fortified his position among the old school, the old guard, by bringing Bruce Pritchard back a couple of years ago. I've often criticized Triple H because it seemed like some of the credit he was getting for the development of some guys like The Shield, for example, a lot of that stuff actually started in Florida Championship Wrestling and really was under the tutelage of Dr. Tom Pritchard. So I think he should get a lot of the credit for the development of guys like Roman Reigns and then Dean Ambrose, of course, Jon Moxley and Seth Rollins as well, who we just talked about started out as Tyler Black in Ring of Honor. a lot of those guys did start out and do very well in FCW. As far as NXT's development of a Charlotte Flair, yes and no. I mean, she was under the direct tutelage of Bill DeMott very early on in that, who didn't want her to do any of her dad's stuff at all, the woos or the struts or any of that stuff. But once Bill DeMott was thrown out of the way, all that shit was out the window. So it's difficult to really talk about the influence that Triple H had. He certainly was one who had, it seems like, the hardcore fans' interest for a while. That's what made NXT a cool brand for a while, is that people really gravitated toward it. They were doing some pretty interesting and experimental stuff that you could do kind of under the radar. Eventually it got too big, though. They were doing very well at some of those WrestleMania shows. I remember the one in Santa Clara where the NXT product did extremely well and got a huge reaction. And I think it surprised Vince. So I'm not really sure where the future lies for Hunter as far as his getting back into some management or them listening to him or anything of the sort. But it certainly looks like in 2021, with his health problems and everything else, he's been faded from the WWE management picture for sure.
Yeah. I tell you that back when you were talking about that Santa Clara WrestleMania and all, that back then, man, NXT was, I think, head and shoulders above either Raw or SmackDown.
It was the best television program they had for sure.
Oh, it was hot, dude. And you know, we talked some shit about Triple H, you know, acting like Triple H about it. But truth be said, man, you know, he really did have, I don't know exactly what he did, but he obviously had a lot to do with the talent that was in there at that time. So I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on with all that. It's got to be some kind of personal shit or something. If it can't be because he's fucking up the talent and stuff, because I think he did fine with NXT. If that's a gauge of any kind.
He may have done entirely too well. That may be the problem.
Well,
when they got the opportunity to do those takeovers and do some live stuff outside of their studio, they were just amazing. I mean, there has to be some sort of acknowledgement of the Gargano Ciampa matches that were just unbelievable, right?
Oh my
and helping build up that brand and making it into a must-see thing. So yeah, that's a huge part of this story, and I'm not really sure what his future is. Number 2 story of the year for me has to be the WWE cost-cutting measures, including firing people about every 2 weeks. We've seen so many firings, and they just don't seem to be stopping anytime soon. Obviously, the Bray Wyatt one was so shocking to a number of people, but Braun Strowman taking a bath, a number of people, any number of people. In fact, some people who had just signed contracts days before, like BFAB recently, just hitting the bricks. And this seems to be the Nick Kahn strategy. As everybody thinks that he's got a grand strategy eventually of selling this company to a major media conglomerate like NBC, Universal, Comcast, the more that he's able to trim these salaries, there seems to be some sort of theory that what they're trying to do on the developmental level is very quickly try to get folks in. If I were, you've seen now recently, very recently, Cameron Grimes has changed his look. They're doing something a little bit different with him now. It may be shit or get off the pot time for Cameron Grimes. As far as those developmental guys go, I don't know anybody that shouldn't be nervous except for Breaker Braun. I think that guy is unbelievable. Can't miss prospect. Has a lot of things going for him. Everybody else, including LA Knight, who has had success at every stop he's had previously, you're gonna have to prove yourself, or in some way show management something, or you're gonna be gone pretty quickly, because they're very serious about firing a lot of people on a fairly regular basis, Brian.
Oh yeah, that they proved that this year for sure. One person I think that does have a lot of up value, I guess, or whatever, is Carmelo Hayes. I think he's I think he's going to be a superstar. I mean, if he's not already a superstar. So, but yeah, him and Breaker. I mean, And the rest of those people that are new since that 2.0 have come on, like Joe Gacy guy and
Right.
Grayson Waller, I think some of those.
That Chase guy, I guess, Duke also.
Oh, that Duke, yeah, Duke Hudson, the dude that Cameron Grimes is the hair versus hair thing. All those guys are like, I don't know, they don't hold my interest whatsoever. I mean, I guess they're okay wrestlers and whatever, but none of them grab my attention at all. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound crass by saying that, but they just don't. And
right.
Other than the two we mentioned, Breaker and Carmelo Hayes. So yeah, man, I don't know what's going to become a 2.0 now. It's not what it used to be. And you still got people on there that really need to get off of there, like Hello Dakota Kai and Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of 2.0 anymore, but I'll still watch it.
The interesting thing that I saw is actually SmackDown. It looks like they're pushing Ricochet for whatever reason again. They had a lovely package of that guy, and I'm not sure why.
We've been teased by that before, but we'll see what happens.
2 years ago, that guy was white hot. I mean, that guy was amazing. He was one of the MVPs of the promotion for a while, and
I know.
They faded that guy like a mother as well. But I don't know what's going on. I would expect another round of firings before the new year, and I don't know if they're going to continue.
Really?
Oh, I would think so. I don't think there is an end in sight. I don't think there's like a point where they go, wow, we have trimmed way too much. I just don't see it right now. And the negative effects we've talked about for the audience is I even think some of the casual fans are getting the idea, don't invest too much of your time and energy into these characters because this guy's going to get fired next week.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they're making it so obvious. How can you not think that, really?
That's what's happening, and it's a strategy again. I think Nick Kahn has been given carte blanche as far as making this company attractive to a buyer, and they've said, "Hey, you can do what you want to." One of the seminal things that happened was when Vince fired those two executives a couple of years ago, and told them to hit the bricks. At that point in time, that's when they reached out and said, "Okay, big guy, this is what you're going to have to do is you're going to hire a very, very serious player." Nick Kahn has a contract that will not allow him to get hurt. I'm telling you, if Vince McMahon throws a fit and decides to get rid of him, the golden parachute that will open up is going to be, it'll rival anything in corporate America. Nick Kahn would not have signed a contract with WWE that's going to allow him to be like Eric Bischoff. I'm going to move halfway across the country and get fired in 2 weeks and then be left shit out of luck. That's not what Nick Kahn did. He has great latitude, and he's got, if you will, a bomb strapped to him in case Vince decides to go off and do some of his old man shit. He is protected very, very well from any retribution from Vince waking up and being Mr. Metamucil one morning.
I wish he would I wish he would do something about the damn Austin Theory thing. That whole thing on Raw was just,
I'll never understand. I don't understand what they were trying to do at all with that. I don't know what the grand scheme on that. What was the plan, guys?
It made no sense. I don't know, and I just don't like that Austin Theory character. I don't know.
Number one story of the year for me was CM Punk's return to wrestling. It established
had to be, man,
a game changer for All Elite Wrestling. It influenced SummerSlam, where Fox was asking Vince, "Hey, what's the plan? And why didn't you try to negotiate with this guy?" CM Punk with just an unbelievable showing to All Elite Wrestling and established them as a major player in the business. He has been everything that he was promised and more to this promotion in terms of selling tickets, getting ratings, selling merch, helping out the younger guys. And now this program with MJF is going to be tremendous. Again, I believe that what they're looking for is for an eventual program with him and Bryan Danielson. You'll remember, again, as I go back to the Colt Cabana podcast that shocked the world on Thanksgiving just a few years ago, CM Punk was talking about when he was in WWE, and they talked about putting him together with Bryan. He said, "Nope, you keep us as far away as possible because anytime you need something, you can throw us together and we'll give you something good." So I truly think that the first part of the year, him and MJF. Second half of the year, you build up to that Labor Day pay-per-view, CM Punk versus Bryan Danielson in Chicago. It's going to have a big match feel to it. It's going to really capture the attention of some of the casual fans, and for the people who are big-time, huge users like you and I of AEW and huge fans, we're going to be very interested in it. I think CM Punk has been everything that he was billed to be, Brian.
Oh, yeah. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there right now, and you can mark it down. If that happens, what you said, if that match happens next year, that will be the match of the year.
Feels like it.
I cannot see it not being. Just the hype of it. I'm just sitting here imagining their, while you're talking, their promos leading up to it and facing off and the audience just going crazy. And
oh yeah.
I think it's going to be the hottest motherfucking thing in a while since both of them showing up in AEW. And
all you have to do,
I couldn't tell you.
All you have to do if you're Tony Khan is promise me those guys are going to get 30 or 40 minutes, and then you can just take my money. I just want those two guys. I want a clean finish, and I want those guys to do everything in the world.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That's going to happen, but that's fine. I have no problem at all with that. I can't wait for that to happen whenever it does.
It's an amazing confluence of events that led us to this moment where CM Punk comes back, and you never know. Maybe if WWE, maybe if Dr. Heyman, if he goes ahead and he lances that boil on CM Punk's back and treats him for MRSA, maybe he doesn't leave the company. Maybe if various other things had happened. Maybe if he would have gotten that main event match at WrestleMania. Maybe if he gotten the main event payoff. Maybe if they hadn't taken all the steps they had to try to disrespect him. Maybe if they hadn't thrown Hunter at him and all of the shit that they had done, maybe CM Punk doesn't leave, but he does leave. Eventually, this other promotion is established. They need a CM Punk. He comes in and blows the roof off of it, takes him to a brand new level. That's that. All of those things and the confluence of events, that storyline that brought CM Punk to AEW, it was remarkable. And the moment when you hear Cult of Personality and him walk into Chicago on that Friday night on Rampage, holy shit! One of the great moments of pro wrestling we're going to remember for a long, long time to come.
And the thing about it is, it wasn't like a surprise showing up. Everybody knew it was going to happen. They said it was going to happen. They put it out there, so it still came off like it did. So that made it more, I think, more special to me that it was as big as it was and still is. And it wasn't, and everybody knew about it. Everybody knew it wasn't like a big shocker and that sort of thing.
And they did it right at the top of the program. They didn't make you wait for it or anything.
Yeah, nope, exactly.
They nailed that one. Even Jim Cornette saying there's no way that he could have done it any better than that. Now for my top 5 MVPs in pro wrestling. Bryant, do you want to go with your number 5 first?
Yeah. Let me grab a list.
Grab your list here. These are the top 5 most valuable players in wrestling. We used both in and out of the ring performers for this particular list. These are the people that had the most impact in the pro wrestling business in 2021. Go ahead with your number 5.
Okay. My number 5 is Eddie Kingston.
Wow. Huge one.
The reason I say that is, and we've talked about it in the last few podcasts, even the time and he and Mox had that match with the shit that didn't go off, the explosion and stuff, and they turned it into chicken salad and and just and Eddie Kingston and I saw this when I was in Charlotte for that AEW show. People love Eddie effing Kingston.
They really do.
I did not realize that until then, really. And I've noticed it ever since then that dude, and I think he holds that place together. And I think I'm not saying all the time, but I think back when they had some rocky shit going on with whether it was COVID or whatever related, I think he was one of the big guys in the back that kept things running. I think he was a big spokesman. I think he was a locker room leader, and I think he held things together. And I think when Mox took off, I think he kind of held his own and had that little deal with Punk there for a minute um and did great with it. So I'm gonna give it to Kingston, man. Number 5.
Such a valuable player, and like you said, making that chicken salad out of chicken shit, and then being able to stick. When you talk about his leadership, obviously he was somebody who helped rally the locker room after the death of Brody Lee.
Definitely.
Almost any position you put him in, he's been fantastic. His promo ability. He was pretty good a couple of years ago. I think he stepped up his game on the mic way up. He's as good as anybody in the business right now.
I liked him when he came into NWA, you remember? And how good he was. I'm like, this dude is awesome, man.
He's something, and he's gone to an entirely different level in AEW. That's a good call at number 5. Bryant has Eddie Kingston. My number 5 is Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns, who came out of the COVID era, very, very strong, and really is the biggest star in the company right now. Obviously, when we talk about him being the biggest star, he doesn't have the mainstream appeal as the other top stars in the company had in the past, whether we're talking about John Cena or The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan. But he still is huge. There's a lot of room for growth. I think when he does some of these appearances that he does on talk shows and stuff, he comes off really good. Obviously, an extremely good-looking guy, represents the company very well, somebody you can get behind. It's very odd, actually, to see him in a position where he's a heel, but that's where he's working out to be very, the best. You wonder how long that's going to continue and how they might possibly get him back to a baby face. They might be using the Brock Lesnar thing eventually to get him back to a baby face. I'm not sure. But as the world gets back around to becoming more normal again, with the asterisk being Omicron at this point, Roman Reigns has had a pretty good couple of years, and I've got him at number 5 on my MVP list. On the number 4 on mine, she's really helped kind of stir things up recently, is Charlotte Flair. I've got Charlotte Flair as obviously one of the biggest stars in the entire company, possibly arguably number 2, obviously the biggest female star in the company. Becky's done very well. Ronda Rousey may come back and steal that mantle from Charlotte. There's been a great deal of intrigue over Charlotte, her behavior lately, with the problems with her father and with her fiance leaving the promotion. She continues to be the bar at which you aim when it comes to the women's division in World Wrestling Entertainment. To me, she has changed the game. One of the great in-ring performers of all time, and I think her mic skills have gotten way, way better. And again, the intrigue of her and the mysteriousness and what she might do next, all of that leads me to believe that she's at number 4. Your thoughts on Charlotte?
You made good points there, and I thought about putting her in my top 5, but I didn't. The only reason I didn't is basically the part you were talking about her and her father and the whole shit show that kind of got that kind of became after a while. And I just think that might have become a little toxic. It could have been more toxic, I think, but I think they came out kind of unscathed almost with everything. At least so far they have. But I don't know. I just think as much as she is, yes, the bar and where the bar set and all that stuff, the intrigue behind her and some of her personal life. I just didn't put her in there because of the toxic stuff. And I was thinking MVP. I'm thinking, positive stuff. So
right.
And I'm not knocking it. I just think, that was just, I just took that into consideration when I made my top 5, especially when I was thinking about females.
Who do you have at number 4?
I do have a female at number 4, though. I kind of went the other way with you, from you, I guess. I went with Bianca Belair.
Wow, huge one, yeah.
And the reason I did that is really, honestly, just I was trying to think of somebody that, that the people love.
Yeah,
that was positive on the company, that people tuned in to see and that sort of thing. And I think talk about somebody who's come up leaps and bounds since NXT. I think I think if there was a most improved over the course. I think she would get it hands down, but I just think she became a top star last year, and I think she became an MVP. And I'll just go ahead and tell you and everybody else that's listening, anybody that showed up halfway through the season on either AEW or WWE, they're not going to be on this list. So in other words, CM Punk is not on this list.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just going ahead and spoiler alert for me. So so they had to be somebody that was with whoever for the 24, last 12 months,
Bianca had a huge moment at WrestleMania, one of the top moments of the year, I think, for the entire company. They set it up and built it very nicely. And she has been very good, and she has been positive. At this point, it's almost very difficult for me to see her as a heel.
I know.
Because she is, I think it is a segment of the population, and it's part of the demographic that the WWE desperately needs to reach out to as far as the young women go. She's a great role model for young ladies and women of color. There are a lot of young ladies that don't see people who look like them represented in athletics or the media per se. And for that, she definitely deserves a shout out. And she's been a really good example. Fantastic babyface, really, really good babyface all the way around. And her future is really good. Hopefully that she's someone that will keep in the forefront of that women's division. Unfortunately, of course, you had what happened at SummerSlam with Becky Lynch, and that's I think continues to be somewhat of a black eye for the WWE Big for time. The year. And they're still kind of trying to dig out from all of that, trying to reestablish Becky based on that. But yeah, Bianca Belair had just a huge, huge year. Who did you have at number 3, Bryant?
Number 3, I had him here, and I almost flipped this person with Eddie Kingston, but I kept him at number 3. Was MJF.
MJF, huge year.
I think he just had some key, key matchups over the year with different people, with people I think that worked very well, including Jericho.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, I don't know. I just think he elevated AEW as a heel. I mean, people love to boo that motherfucker,
If there is a better heel in the business, I don't know who it is. I think
tell me, please.
I mean, Roman is up there, but I think MJF is tremendous. I thought he did great in that program with Jericho. They did the singing and dancing thing. They did a little bit of comedy. He finishes up the year, of course, launching with that really promising program with CM Punk, which I think is going to be just fantastic. Huge deal for him. I've been a fan of Max for a while, and he's just really, every time the spotlight shines on him, he comes up big. I mean, he's fantastic on the mic. He's fantastic in the ring. At a very young age, this guy gets the business on a level that a lot of people who are that young don't get the business at. And he has accomplished a lot, and I think he's going to accomplish a lot more. I think 2022 is going to be a big year for him. I don't know if they eventually switch to that super match between Bryan Danielson and CM Punk at that September pay-per-view. I don't know exactly what they do for him, but he's great to put in any case with any babyface. He can do anything. The guy is amazing. I've never seen him work as a babyface before. Hopefully that doesn't happen for a while because he's just such an amazing heel.
I can't see it. Not for a while.
Number 3 on my list was Tony Khan. Tony Khan doing exactly what needed to be done for business, showing that he will write the checks that he needs to do to make the game-changing announcements, kind of rolling with the punches and doing whatever it takes to get that promotion over to the next level. He's shown that he's more than just a fanboy in a lot of different ways. We'll see exactly how far that goes. The only firing that he was able to make this year, I guess, was Big Swole. That's the only person he says no to on this particular deal. But I think Tony Khan has done.
Just don't know what to do with you, Swole. I'm sorry.
He's done a lot of stuff with the promotion. He deserves a lot of credit for it, to build it into what he has. Maintains good relations with Warner Media, and he's built something huge there with AEW. I think Tony Khan had a pretty good year, Bryant.
I can't argue with that either, man. I thought about him in the top 5, but I I don't know. I probably should have put him in there, but because more I've listened to you talk, more I'm like, damn, he does deserve to be in the top 5. But yeah, everything you said, I can't really add or subtract from it.
At number 2, I've got another genius. His name is Paul Heyman.
Hey,
He's very much the star of Friday Night SmackDown and a huge reason that Roman Reigns has gotten where he's gotten. Paul Heyman, just when you think he can't invent himself another way, he's done it again. It doesn't matter whether it's him and Roman getting together, the tension between him and Brock, the Paul and Kayla show. I mean, that is amazing in and of itself. You know, I don't know that he's had a foil quite like Kayla Braxton in his career, even going back to ECW and some of the stuff that he did there. And it's amazing to look at the performances that he's given over the years and what he's able to do right now. You know, you talk about a guy that takes it to another level and is able to get all of the angles. And man, this guy sets himself up beautifully in so many different ways. You can't wait to see what's going to happen when Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns get together and how Paul's going to figure into it. He makes everything interesting. He's able to kind of, again, behind the scenes in a way, consult with people. But Paul Heyman, to me, has had a tremendous year, and he has one of the big reasons that SmackDown is a fairly watchable program, Brian.
Oh yeah, he's like Dick Clark. He just doesn't age, you know. I mean, he ages, but his character doesn't age, and his ability to do everything you just said doesn't age. He just rolls with the changes and just god dang shines, man. I mean, there's been plenty of times, even pre-COVID, to be honest, that he just, if it wasn't for him, SmackDown or Raw would have just been complete garbage. And he was the only one that kind of saved it for that night. And he just, I don't know, just when you're ready to write him off, he pulls something else out, you know.
20 years ago, we could have asked ourselves, how Paul Heyman going to keep himself relevant? 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and he still continues to come through with on a network television program, television program to make it interesting, to add something to it, to add heat to it. He makes you care about stuff. He knows when to put the heat on himself and get his own ass kicked. He knows when to put the heat on other people. I mean, honestly, the word genius in pro wrestling is probably overused, but holy shit, if this guy ain't a genius, I don't know who is.
I mean, I'm at a loss if he's not. You know, he's definitely got his faults, and we all are aware of those. But I think he's gotten better over the years. I think he's smartened up over the years, and I don't know. He was an adult when all that shit was happening, but I think he's matured from that in his older years here. So I'll give him some credit for that. And you know, he just keeps rolling, man. And it's not just he keeps rolling with fucking A material. You know,
at an extremely high level on a network television program.
Yeah,
who do you have on as your number 2?
Number 2 is somebody we've already talked about. I just put him up a little bit higher on my list. Was Reigns, Roman Reigns. Just everything you said before. I just felt like that man, over the last year, if it wasn't for some of the stuff he was doing, some of those shows, Raw and SmackDown, just like I said about Heyman, would have been garbage. And up till today, up till this day, I think that's the truth. If there's been, I don't know, I'm thinking tonight it was okay. The Sasha and who did she wrestle?
Who did
Sasha? Shayna. Yeah. I thought that was good, but everything else was like, yeah. But Reigns was just, you know, you see him as like, okay, here comes something. You know, so I just think when it gets to that point where you're like, good, Reigns is here. Finally, Roman Reigns. You got to. I think I got to put him up at number 2 at least because you know, he's carrying the show for me.
Well, he's the biggest star in the company. I don't think there's any question. We could talk about who the second biggest, but I think he's the guy. And we always heard for a number of years if they would have just let him run and be a heel, he could be a monster heel. And he has been, again, with the help of the guy I had at number 2, Paul Heyman. They've been able to team together. And also you have to blend the Usos in there as well, being able to support him. That whole
asterisk
faction
for them, for sure, yeah.
to help carry him over. I mean, it's Roman Reigns, has done everything that he has promised to do for a number of years, languishing as a baby face that was really not connecting with the crowd. And then because of COVID, they were forced to kind of do this. And now, as he has stepped into this role, he's done very, very well with it. Again, making that SmackDown program completely watchable. And I think by far the best thing that they've got as far as their programming right now is SmackDown. And a big part of that is because of Roman Reigns and what he's been able to do.
Yeah, and I think, just in general, and I don't know enough about the inside of wrestling to know how they do this, but I would hope that people would key on, like Reigns, for instance. He is such a natural heel at where he is right now. He is just, god dang, this is just his wheelhouse, man. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think people sometimes shit just seems forced on people, and it shows a lot of times.
Exactly.
And I think they kind of finally got the damn niche right with him on this.
Well, it's very similar to what's going on with Cody. It's very clear that crowd wants to boo him. And so why don't you just let them boo him, right? That's the point.
Turning him into an asshole. I mean,
if that's what the crowd wants to do, you let them do it. That's what happened with Hogan. Eventually they were booing Hogan. Fuck, let them boo Hogan.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
It could turn into major money. I mean, if he turns into the biggest asshole ever and comes in and just wrecks everybody, and just he could be the top heel in the damn in the damn company if they wanted him to be.
Who you have in your number 1 spot for the MVP of 2021?
Well, let me just say I'm anxious to hear yours because I can't think of who it could be, but mine we've already talked about. I put Heyman at number 1.
Okay.
Because of what we just talked about. I just felt like he was, as much as Roman has done, I think Heyman has done just a little bit more and even helped Roman to do what he has done up to this point. So I just think he just gets the nod above Roman to me to be the MVP and fucking carrying Raw and or SmackDown at many a time over the last 12 months.
Paul Heyman is definitely a guy that you could say is the MVP of that promotion, and partially because he kept himself from getting fired, surprisingly.
Well, that's always a plus.
For the many times that Stephanie fired him or sent him to OVW, you still go back to those years when it was a bad thing for Paul Heyman to say that you were good. I mean, there are a lot of people that tell you that's what hindered CM Punk for a number of years in that company, is that Paul Heyman wouldn't shut up about how great he was. So strangely enough, the Paul Heyman connection comes through on my number 1. I did have CM Punk as the number 1 on the MVP. I understand that he was only there for a third of a year, but still, the way that he elevated that company, the way that he brought mainstream attention to wrestling, the way that he blew the roof off of the joint and changed the game, to me shows that he deserves that number 1 spot for the year for 2021.
Yeah, that's it's really I can't fault you for saying that, and I'm not faulting you for saying that.
Sure.
I just took I guess my credentials for I just took as much as I wanted to put him, I could have put him, Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, whatever. Fucking Adam Cole, all 3 in there if I wanted to, because they all 3 every week just get huge reactions.
Yeah.
So I just I was trying to be fair about it and trying to think about the whole body of work kind of thing. So but CM Punk, he's always a damn MVP, man.
It is interesting that Bryan Danielson didn't make either one of our lists, and he easily could have made either one of them. It could have been very near the top because he was a game changer as well.
Yeah, and but if you talk like taking everything and not just AEW, you take all the companies like we were doing and picking out it's kind of hard to choose between those 3, but I think out of you kind of have to give CM Punk the nod just because of fact that he had been out of wrestling, like you said, for so long, and
Exactly.
come back, and he really did get a bigger pop probably than Danielson did when he first came back. Not that Danielson didn't get a huge ass pop, but it's just CM Punk's was just a little bit more. But even if you took CM Punk out of the equation, I mean, they still would have been rocking, bringing Cole and Danielson in. So
Yeah.
you put Punk in, and it's like, so. But yeah, man, I really have no problem with putting Punk on there. I just looked at it differently than you did, I guess, as far as what credentials we're looking at.
Pretty good discussion. Any closing thoughts on another award-winning episode of Katie Vick is Alive?
I'm still pissed at the inspiration, but we're good. I keep thinking about it, man. I'm sorry.
Well, we got to see some boobs. That was nice.
Yeah.
That's all right. That worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I guess. But we walked by Sonny and Francine about 2 or 3 times. We saw boobs all over the place there too.
It's true. There was a lot of boobage. A lot of boobage to be had at the Wrestle Cave. A lot of boobage. Brian can be followed on the social media, on Instagram and also on Twitter. It's at Bry Sports, BRY Sports. TikTok, Stanley Jackson 23. Our show Twitter is at Katie Vick Alive. I am at Britt Whitmire on the Twitter machine, BRITTWHITMIRE. And on Instagram, it's Beat Up for Reels, BDUB number 4, REELZ. Hey, if you would keep us in mind for all of your shopping needs for the holidays, our Amazon store is katievick.com. It is katievick.com. If you support what we do, we would love to have you shop at our Amazon store, katievick.com. Until next time, fans, we'll see you ringside.